Welcome back, everybody, to the Auburn Undercover YouTube channel. Christian Clemente here, joined by Jason Caldwell. Jason, when we signed off on the recruiting podcast earlier this week, I don't remember exactly when we recorded it, maybe Tuesday night, we said, look, whenever we get a chance to collect our breath and once things die down for a little bit over what will be a crazy 10 to 12 day stretch or so, we'll catch you back here on the YouTube channel. Because we knew there'd be news, or we knew there'd be information and intel and there'd be stuff happening. We didn't necessarily know that there would be news. And that's what's happened over the past 2 days with two commitments, one on Thursday, one on Friday. Before we get into that, I'm going to mention real quick, if you go over to auburnundercover.com and you're not a subscriber already, you can catch a 60% off summer recruiting special. We've had a ton of VIP recruiting stuff that'll continue over the next couple of weeks. And that goes year round. We always have VIP recruiting stuff. We always have a recruiting story and VIP stuff every single day. So this is a good sale and opportunity for you to check that out. Also, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, that is totally free and you can do that down below. And it would be greatly appreciated. We are under 10 subscribers away from reaching 10,000. So if we could get to 10,000 with this video being uploaded, that would be greatly appreciated and that'd be awesome. With that being said, Jason, let's start with, let's work our way backwards a little bit. Broderick Scholl, he ends up committing to Auburn on Friday. A quote unquote surprise commitment in the sense that he never really set a date or didn't really say anything. Not overly surprising knowing who he is. He doesn't do the fanfare. He didn't have a Hayes Fawcett graphic. He didn't have a huge graphic made. He just put it out and he said, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to work. And that's not surprising given what we talked about last time on the show when he officially visited last weekend. He said the decision got easier. He said at the time that he still planned to make his visits to Texas A&M and Texas Tech. But clearly, he, after sitting on Auburn for a couple of days, he decided, I'm ready to hop in the boat. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned, I wrote about it today. One of the guys he reminds me of is Jonah Williams, who was a guy that had Auburn ties. He visited Auburn, went to Alabama. They said, hey, we want you. You're our guy. He committed to Alabama and never visited anywhere else. Never really tweeted a whole lot after that and was done. And I said, look, in a lot of ways, he reminds me some of Jonah Williams. That's part of it. The recruiting process was about finding the right school for him. It wasn't about how many followers he could gain, all those things. And hey, that's fine. That's great for some, just not what he's about. But he's a heck of a football player, and he's really aggressive, really good feet. That's the thing that stands out about me is you watch him and you go, and I said he's kind of the dancing bear guy. That's who he is, and so much left on his frame. You look at him right there, and you go, he's a big kid, but you look at him and you go, God, he's not anywhere close to what he's going to be by the time he's on a collegiate, strength and conditioning program for a few years. Really good addition, and Jake Thornton and this staff, his offensive line group, they continue to just, it's a complete overhaul. What they've done in I guess it's now around 20 months. It's just been nothing short of amazing to watch the offensive line group. And this is another really good addition for what's shaping up to be a pretty darn good class. And there's still more guys out there that they'd like to bring in.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I posted it on the message board after Scholl committed to spark some discussion and maybe rile people up a little bit. Remind people that this time last year, Jake Thornton was public enemy number one on the message boards in terms of Auburn coaches. People were killing him, saying he wasn't recruiting well enough and saying that, Auburn the O-line wasn't going to, be any good. And he was never going to be able to recruit at this level. And at the time we were trying to tell people, look, it's kind of a down year in terms of O-line talent. Things will shake out, we think, solidly. He gets DeAndre Carter, he gets Favor Edwin, he gets Seth Wilford, gets a solid little three group there in 2024. And now that he's had more time to kind of build up these relationships in a really strong offensive line class, he's got 5 guys committed, recording this on June 7th. And he's got, 2 of those guys are absolute have to have tier 1 guys on Auburn's board in Scholl and Tavares Dice. And Auburn's got those guys committed. And then you've got other really talented guys as well. Carday Smith is a top 247 guy. Ty Buster is a 3-star, but he's a guy that Auburn feels very strongly about as an interior guy. Spencer Dolan committed last fall as well, so he's another guy kind of in the mix there who could be a guard or a tackle as well. And then you mentioned it, other guys they're still after. I mean, Jacoby Ward, the big interior offensive lineman from Benedictine Military School, he's on campus right now for his official visit. That's a guy that Auburn feels really strongly about as a guard as well. And then you've got other guys. You got Malachi Goodman from up there in New Jersey, who Auburn's battling Penn State. You got Andrew Babalola, who Auburn's really battling Stanford. So you still have some guys there. You know, people were saying on the board, oh, 5 commitments, you know, fired up, love this offensive line class. I said, look, it's not done. I don't want to say far from done, but you could still add 1 or 2 more guys. And, you know, obviously you still have to hold on to your guys as well. Tavares Dice still being recruited by Florida. Carday Smith still being recruited by Florida State and Mississippi State. Some other schools in the mix for a guy like Ty Buster as well. So you still have to hold on to your guys. But Jason, it's been a complete overhaul at offensive line from the get-go. I mean, when they first come in, you get Connor Liu, and then you get a ton of portal guys. Last year, you sprinkle in 3 guys, and you get a couple portal guys as well in Percy Lewis, and Ronan Chambers is kind of a 1-year depth pickup for this season. But now it's all about loading up the depth chart and building from the high school ranks for the future.
It's to look at the groups of guys they brought in. Actually, what's funny is walking by today during part of the 7-on-7, I saw DeAndre Carter in there working out. Just got on campus a couple of days ago, and so already out in there working out. But just the group and the guys they've brought in, the depth, the talent, and that's it. It's stacking talent on top of talent. We talked about it at every other position, and offensive line's right there. You have to stack talent on top of talent because it may be the most difficult position to evaluate because it's such a wide range of guys. Is a guy going to grow into what you think he is? Is he strong enough? Is he physical enough? Are his feet good enough? Is he going to stick around and let you develop him in 3 years, which is, you know, kind of that normal window? So you have to have a bunch of those guys. You can't have 8, as we've seen. You can't have, you know, 5 or 6 high school guys in a 3-year stretch. You just can't do that. And so now you look and you start going, look, stack talent on top of talent, get guys in there, create that competitive fire among the entire group, and may the best man win. Now you're going to start to see that in the next couple of years.
Yeah, so Auburn picks up Broderick Scholl on Friday. The day before that, on Thursday, they picked up Donovan Starr, the 4-star cornerback out of Ravenwood, Tennessee. He's a guy that Auburn offered this spring after going to see him. He's ran a 10.56 in the 100. He's high jumped 6'9" as well. As a sophomore, I think he high jumped 6'6" this year. But he's a guy that's really young for his class as well. Could be a 2026 guy potentially. Another commitment that somewhat caught people off guard, but not necessarily a huge surprise. He officially visited. He took a midweek visit, arrived on Tuesday, left on Thursday. Got a chance to talk with him Thursday morning. He said Auburn's my leader at that time. And he said, you know, I asked him about a decision timeline, and he said, honestly, yesterday, as in Wednesday, it felt like things were kind of right, but I'm going to take these other visits and then decide from there. And then, you know, Auburn's having their 7-on-7 camp on Thursday, and he ends up putting out a commitment. And, you know, sometimes, Jason, we'll talk with these kids and they'll commit and they'll tell us and they'll silently commit kind of to us and give us some quotes and say, hey, I'll tweet something out, you know, at this time, and y'all can be ready with your stories. That wasn't the case with Donovan Starr. He did not commit. He did not tell us. And he was not committed when he left his visit. On the drive back home to Ravenwood, Tennessee, he's thinking about it more, and he decides, I'm ready to go. Auburn's where I want to be. And he calls Auburn's staff, and you know, Auburn's staff is kind of in the middle of 7-on-7, and they're fired up, and they're able to get him kind of right away there.
Yeah, we just talked about a position where numbers are vitally important on the offensive line. I don't know that there's another position now that's more important to have a lot of numbers than defensive back and cornerback, because you're playing 5 defensive backs almost an entire game now. The goal line, short yardage, maybe against a certain team, you might play a traditional 4 DB set. Most of the time you're playing 5. A lot of times you're playing 6. You got to have a lot of guys that can cover. And this is another one of those guys that does it. Christian, we've seen it. We've seen the guys they're recruiting. Length is one of the things that comes to mind. This is another one of those guys that has that length. He's a long guy, really athletic, not afraid to come up and be physical. And it's kind of funny that, we talked about maybe not the greatest corner class, but they keep digging to find guys and to find their kind of guys. And we've seen it. We'll talk about one of those guys here in a few minutes, probably. But they know the importance. And, we saw it last year a little bit from Jake Thorne going, hey, I'm not going to go all out because it's such a good 2025 offensive line class. Well, this is one where you're going to find defensive backs. There may not be a bunch of guys that jump right away, but there's a lot more DB guys that come to the forefront than their offensive line. Offensive line are much harder to find. They continue to turn over rocks and find guys that are really good and get in the recruiting process and get those guys in. And just another impressive get. I like this. Again, a guy that I think fits in well with what they want to do.
Yeah, he's got a lot of fun traits to his game, and especially when you kind of mix and match him with, you've got Dante Core, who's a really long guy. You've got Devin Williams, who's the smaller, kind of speedy guy. Donovan Starr is honestly kind of a mix of both of those. He's got decent length and decent size, but he's also really fast as well. So he's got some good traits, and Auburn not done at cornerback there as well. They're still after Naeem Offord pretty heavily. They're after Blake Woodby as well. And then, as you mentioned, Jason, we'll get into it here in a second with the 7-on-7 camp. They're after Shamar Arnaud from Carrollton and some other guys. Before we get into that, I'm just going to plug it one more time. The 60% off sale over at auburnundercover.com. It'll get you all the way to official visit season and a little bit into it as well next year as well if you take advantage of this deal. It is one of our best deals of the year. We do 60% off, and then the only thing we ever go above that is 70% off, and we only do that like twice a year for a couple of days each time. So this is a great opportunity to get a part of the Auburn Undercover family. Jason, 7-on-7 camps. Friday was a quieter day, but that was because Thursday was one of the most loaded 7-on-7 camps you will ever see on a college campus, as evidenced by the fact that Auburn let some other schools, lower level schools, come to camp and come to kind of watch and scout. And Memphis, Western Kentucky, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, Arkansas State. There were 6 or 7, 8 schools all there watching because there were so many guys at so many different levels. For Auburn's level, there were a lot of really high-end players. Juju Lewis, Anquan Fagans, Eric Winters, Shamar Arnaud, Zion Grady, a million more. For these other level schools, there were a lot of dudes as well. But in terms of Auburn guys, Jason, I think we have to start with Juju Lewis, the 5-star quarterback from Carrollton. You were able to catch up with him. He had some interesting quotes talking about Auburn, which he will be in next weekend for his official visit. The USC commitment is in USC this weekend for his official visit there. Jason, it was, in terms of his on-the-field production, we knew what he was as a player. Not surprising the way he played during the 7-on-7 camp. Talking, overhearing some staffers. One person said, I don't think he's missed a throw all day, which he missed maybe 2 or 3 all day in total. And then the quote that stuck out was "Good God Almighty" with one of the throws that he had. And I was talking about him with someone, and we kind of figured it out. He's almost like a Chris Paul out there. He's just always putting the ball in the right spot. He's a point guard out there, and he is precise with his arm. And he'd be a fantastic pickup if Auburn's able to get him at quarterback. Obviously,
I got a basketball comparison too, because I use this some in terms of like JP Pegues when I talked about Auburn picking him up in basketball. Going, look, he never seems rushed. That's what when you watch Juju, you look at a guy and it goes, it always seems like it's in slow motion for him. And Trent Seaborn is the same way, and he's a younger version because they understand what they're watching and seeing before it happens. And that's the traits of a good quarterback. And he still got us he should just be a junior in high school coming up. He still should be finishing his sophomore year of high school. So this guy's a still young guy. Gotten bigger. He's gotten more physical. That'll continue. But he has some Bryce Young traits a little bit. Maybe he's a little bit thicker than Bryce Young was for sure when he came out of high school. But you watch him play, and it's one of those things that just effortless. He's able to slide and kind of find the right angles and throw guys open. So it was fun to watch. And I mean, talking to him, I think it comes down to, do I want to stay close to home? Do I want to go to USC? And I thought there was something interesting. And, we're talking to him, and he talked about 17 years old away from home. 17 years old away from home, most anywhere else would be difficult enough. 17 years old away from home in Los Angeles is another level altogether. It may be fine. That may be where he winds up. That's a very different animal. And so I think that could be the thing if he winds up at Auburn. That may be the difference, is closer to home, being able to do those things instead of going across the country. So we'll see. But Auburn is absolutely in the picture.
Yeah, the comfortability factor is kind of what will be key there. And Jason, I'm glad you mentioned angles. The thing that really stuck out with me yesterday was he's so good at deceiving the defense with his eyes. He'll look over to the left just for a second, get a safety to bite over just for a little bit, open up the wide receiver kind of in the middle of the field and make a play. He was impressive to watch, as was Shamar Arnaud, the cornerback on Carrollton. Jason, he maybe had half a dozen picks throughout the day. I know for a fact I saw at least 3 of them, and I did not watch all of their games. Really long, lengthy cornerback, a guy that we heard a good bit about after Auburn went to go and see him this spring. And he had already been offered, and he had been committed to Tennessee previously, but backed off that pledge. And Auburn basically said, hey, look, in case you didn't think you had an offer, you're re-offered. You're a guy that we really like. And he'll be back next weekend for his official visit. As Auburn continues to, you only took Jay Crawford really at cornerback this past year, and now you just lost Colton Hood. So you've got plenty of spots if you want to load up at cornerback in this class. And I think Shamar Arnaud is a very real possibility there.
God, man, I don't know that there was anybody that I was impressed with more than Shamar Arnaud. Guy that is long. This is a 6'2.5", probably 175, 180. I think he's a guy that plays at 195 pounds by the time he's done. He's going to be a big corner, but he can bend, he can turn, he can run. Great closing speed. I was thoroughly impressed, and so I think it's a guy that will bear watching a whole lot in the next couple of weeks and months. And I know, hey, looking forward to seeing Carrollton. We'll get a chance to see them this year, which will be a lot of fun. They're actually playing Parker. Isn't that the one they play?
Yes, at Parker.
Playing Parker with Jordan Crawford, Naeem Alford, and Timothy Merritt. There's tons of guys, and so that will be a fun one to watch as we get into the season this year.
Yeah, real quick. Speaking of Parker, Jordan Crawford was back with his team who was in the 7-on-7. Found out that Jordan and Malik Autry actually went through a private workout with Vontrell King-Williams in the morning, kind of before camp got started, and was told by someone that was at the workout that Jordan Crawford almost broke the sled because of how powerful he was during that workout. So there you go. That's something that we talked about over on the Auburn Undercover board earlier today, but an impressive note there with Auburn's potential future nose tackle. And then Jason, obviously, we'll touch on him real quick. Eric Winters and Anquan Fagans, the two very different but very good safeties. Eric Winters with Enterprise, Anquan Fagans with Thompson. They were two guys that we knew were going to be impressive going into the day, and they were as impressive as we thought they would be.
Two really good players. A little different type of players. Eric Winters is maybe a little bit of an old school guy. He can run, he can cover those things, but he's a big body guy that can get out there. He makes a lot of plays on offense for that team too. Had a couple of really good touchdown catches. Just like watching him play, he's a guy that gives you the opportunity to go out and cover a tight end. Can get backside of the backfield, can play in the box as a safety. He does a lot of different things, and so interesting dynamic for him. And Auburn's there, Miami, Georgia. Feels like those are the three, even though there's some other teams involved. Don't you feel like it's one of those three?
It's those three. Yeah, he was going to go see Tennessee, but he canceled that visit.
I think it's those three. He talked a lot about Miami, Auburn being close to home. He hung around, talked to Charles Kelly for a long time, and then Anquan Fagans, new boy. That's one that feels like it's more and more Auburn every day. not over yet. July 29th will be the date. It's his grandmother's birthday. But his older brother, we saw Antoine Fagans the other day out there running around a camp. He was out there again yesterday. Mom and Dad were there. Obviously, Caleb Harris, former teammate at Thompson. Antonio Kite was out there to watch him. There's a lot of connections for Antoine Fagans at Auburn. He has elite ball skills. He is the Cam Coleman type of a defensive guy. He just finds the football. That's what he does. And, like he's a guy that you look up and he could be a guy that has, 15, career interceptions by the time he's done at Auburn and be one of those players. And so if Auburn gets those two guys at safety, then I think Charles Kelly probably a guy that turns cartwheels, around the building and maybe around the block if he were to get those two guys.
Yeah, I think he'd be very happy. Look, there's a million more names that we could sit here and talk about. We're not going to do a full podcast. We kind of just wanted to hop on as a quick War Eagle wake up and a quick little recap of the 2 commitments and the 7-on-7 camp, just to kind of keep y'all updated over on the YouTube. And for those that are over at auburnundercover.com and like to watch and listen to kind of what we have to say, wanted to hop on here real quick. We will be back at some point again next week. Again, I'll say it again. We'll, if needed, we will hop on sooner. If not, we will hop on once things die down just a little bit and we get a break. There will be 8 official visitors this weekend, 2 late additions. Jason, I guess we forgot to even talk about Nate Marshall, the Michigan commitment, and then oh boy, the linebacker from Nebraska, Christian Anderson, I think his name is.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So 2 late additions on top of the 6 other guys. So you've got 8 OVs who will leave Sunday morning. We'll have that all covered for you at auburnundercover.com. Promptly followed by another elite camp. Hezekiah Harris, Vodney Cleveland, quarterback from California, quarterback from Utah. A lot more guys will be there as well. Those are just some of the headliners. We'll have that covered. Official visitors all throughout next week. They're doing midweek visits. There will be guys leaving Tuesday, guys leaving Wednesday, guys leaving Friday, followed by more than a dozen guys in next weekend.
Making me tired already.
Yeah. So,
as you said, when we get a break, we're just going to have to make a break. So we'll make a break at some point and do this again. But they don't know if we're going to get one. We'll just have to create one.
Yeah. Either way, we will catch you guys soon again on the YouTube. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. We will catch you guys again soon.